So the RS5 has been out for a little bit over a month, and understandably it has been sweeping the filmmaking community. My name's Cam, I'm a technician here at Pro Photo Rental. We've carried every iteration of DJI's gimbals all the way back to the original Ronin. And I'll admit I was skeptical when they announced the RS5 because it's hard to imagine what they could improve upon after the RS4. And I was wrong. This thing is an absolute powerhouse. With new features like the AI tracking module, the controllable briefcase handle, the adjustable dials on every axis. The improvements on this thing are so impressive. That said, there's some things you should know when you're setting up the gimbal, as well as some things to consider if you want to use the RS5 with your shoot. So in this video, we're going to go through step by step how you should set up the RS5, as well as some of the new features that it comes with so that you feel fully equipped to handle it like a boss. Let's dive in. So the first thing that we're going to do before we do anything is we're going to assemble the components. So we got the FX3, the Sony FE3514, and last but not least, we got our DJI RS5 kit. And just for clarification, this is the exact kit that you'll get when you rent it from us here in the shop. No alteration. What comes in the kit, we have the tripod foot, we have the power handle, we have the controllable briefcase handle, we have our mounting plate, we got the head of the RS5 itself, and finally we have our little bag of goodies. This is going to have your connecting USB-C cables, your AI tracking module. So the first thing that I like to do when I'm setting up a camera on a gimbal is I like to build out my camera exactly how I'm going to want it to be, because that's going to optimize battery life within the gimbal itself. Now granted, the battery life for the RS5 is legendarily long, but it doesn't hurt to make sure that it's balanced so that you can maximize the battery life. So for this shoot, I'm using the FX3. I'm going to be using it with the 35mm 1.4. Quick tip, when you're putting a lens on, try to keep the camera aimed downward. Sometimes I'll see people go completely vertically when they're putting the lens on, and that's just inviting dust and debris to fall into your sensor. So I got the lens on. I'm going to be taking the hood off because I don't intend to be using that. I'm going to take the lens cap off. Very important to remember that part. I'm also going to be throwing in the card. You don't have to do this, but I always like to set all my camera settings as well before I mount it to the gimbal. And now I'm ready to balance the gimbal. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the battery grip, and we're going to take the tripod foot and just screw it into the bottom like so. So you'll see the 1/4-20 thread on top there. It's going to screw right into there. Give it a little tight. You don't want to tighten it too much just because you don't want to strip the screw. So I give it a little bit of a tightening, and now we'll extend that, set that down. Now we'll put the gimbal head on. It's pretty intuitive, but just to be thorough, what we want to do is line this up so that the metal pins here line up with the receivers there. So I'm going to set this down. I'm going to make sure that we're unlocked, and then it's going to, you'll see the release button flip once it's locked into place, and then we'll just further tighten it from there a little bit. So nice and snug, pop it down, boom, there you go. Then from there, you just want to kind of, again, not overly tighten it, but just give it a little bit of an adjustment. And there you go. Now, we're going to loosen the axes on the gimbal itself. For reference, if you're new to this, we have these little switches that will activate a lock on all of the axes so it doesn't fall out of place. So for the roll axis, I'm going to flip this one off. Then I'm going to adjust the roll just a little bit, but then turn this back on so that when we extend it, it locks into place for us. I'm going to do the same thing on the tilt axis. I'm going to turn that off temporarily and then turn this back on until it locks into place, and you'll feel it lock into place. You'll feel it really snap on there. So I'm going to set this aside real quick. We're going to hold down the release button, make sure that the release switch is off. Hold down the button and slide that off. And then we're going to just thread this 1/4-20 screw to the bottom of our camera body. One of the cool things about these plates is that once the gimbal is balanced, you can say change a battery or swap out a card on the camera body and then slide it right back on and keep rolling without having to rebalance it. It comes with a little, it's a wing nut, which is nice because you don't need a screwdriver and you can apply the appropriate amount of force. Again, not too much, but we just want to add some, want it to be a little tight, nice and secure. Next, we're going to slide this in for our mounting plate for the gimbal. So make sure that The camera lens is pointing in the same direction as the arrow. Line this up and slide it on, and you'll feel it click like that. Then afterwards, we just want to secure that by tightening this right here. And now we can mount the plate onto the gimbal itself. You're going to notice on the bottom of the plate, the teeth of the bottom of this plate are going to fit into this gear here. And that's what's going to enable us to kind of use the dial to move it back and forth. So when we're mounting it to the gimbal, we want to line the plate up like so, and then sort of slide it back on. And you'll feel a light click there, and that means that it's locked into place, which is good. You can also test it by controlling this dial and seeing, does the camera move backwards or forwards, and that's when you'll know that it's ready to be locked down essentially. Now we're not balancing it yet, we're just getting the camera mounted. We have one more accessory that we want to add before we balance it, and that is the infamous AI tracking module, which you'll find in the goodie bag. So fortunately, it's a really easy way to mount. You just simply hook onto it like so. You'll actually feel it magnetically pull into place, and then you give it a little wiggle and you know, okay, that's on there nice and secure. So now our tracking module is on, we got the camera locked in place, everything's set for us to start balancing. The first thing that I like to balance is the tilt axis. And what's tricky about the tilt axis is that there's two ways to balance that, and you need to kind of make them in equilibrium to each other for optimal gimbal performance. So what I'm gonna first do, I'm going to hold on to the base plate right here. I'm gonna hold that off, and I can already feel, okay, that's tilting backwards. So if I rotate this around, if it's moving backwards, that means I have to move the camera forwards. So now I'm going to loosen this lock. I'm gonna use this dial to micro adjust to where it's balanced. And still, I overcorrected a bit. Okay. That's a good starting spot. Now, the second way that we need to balance the tilt axis before we move on is from a top-down perspective. So you're gonna move the camera from this position where you can see it's balanced, it's not going either way. We're gonna move it here where we can see if I let it go, it's falling backwards, which tells me that this entire plate needs to move down this tilt axis so that we're not, you know, flopping around. And so I'm going to use this dial, and that's going to bring the whole plate downwards. Okay, I overcorrected. Okay, that seems good. So I'm going to tighten that down. Seems stable. Now we need to check on if that affected the original tilt axis. All right, and this tilt axis is also good. So good. The tilt axis is now balanced, so now I'm gonna lock this into place. The reason I do this is I like to balance one axis at a time, just because that's how my brain works. It helps me to concentrate on balancing one thing at a time. So I'm gonna lock this in place, and we're gonna now adjust the roll axis. The roll axis refers to this mounting point, which will enable the gimbal possibly to roll around and do all sorts of cool movements side to side. So for that, the release for it is on the side here, and I'm gonna hold on to, I'm gonna brace it right about here as I turn that off. And as I let go, I can kind of feel, oh, this is tilting to the right. So I need to counter correct by moving it to the left. So I'm gonna unlock this, and I'm gonna use the dial to pull the mounting point more to the left to kind of counter that. And that seems pretty good. Quick tip with this whole thing, when an axis is optimally balanced, you should be able to position the camera in any direction and have it not move. So if I'm going here, if I know it's balanced, it's gonna stay like that. Likewise, if I go the other way, it's also gonna stay balanced. And then even if I turn off the tilt axis, if I go here and up, it's just gonna move and stay put. So that's kind of how you know. That's at least my metric for seeing if something is genuinely balanced. Now we're gonna balance the pan axis. To balance this, we're gonna unlock this mounting point, And then from here, how I determine if this is balanced or not is I pick it up and you just turn it directly sideways. You just do a straight horizontal movement like that. And depending on which side of the gimbal falls over first, that's how you know where it needs to be balanced. So the back side is first swinging down, so that tells me that I need to move the whole camera forward. So to do that, I'm gonna unlock it here. I'm gonna reposition it, and I'm gonna move it forward. For this one, you do kind of just have to feel it out. All right, so I overcorrected because now when I tilt it, the camera, it's still falling over, but it's going from the camera side first. So now I need to push it back a little bit because I overcorrected. Story of my life. All right, still going forward. So unlock that, I'm gonna push it back just a little bit. Balancing a gimbal is a game of patience. It is a game of subtle changes and just waiting till it's just right. The general idea is that we don't want movement like that. We want it to, like I was saying before, stay as much as possible. Yeah, there we go. And if we go the other way, perfect. Now we can turn on the gimbal and test out all of those sweet features we were talking about. So to turn on the gimbal, there's actually a power button on the side that also moonlights as a sleep button. So to turn on the gimbal, I'm just gonna press this for a little bit. So once you've turned on the gimbal, you're gonna wanna calibrate it, and the icon here should be looking green. That's what you want. The icon being green means that it's balanced enough to be functional and to optimize battery life. If it's orange, then you should turn it off and rebalance it because something's not good or not right and something can go awry very quickly. And then furthermore, what I wanna do is calibrate the gimbal. So I'm gonna press this icon, and then I'm just gonna hit start calibrate. And now the gimbal is gonna do this funny little jig of a dance, wiggling itself around. There we go. So with the RS5, as well as all of DJI's gimbals dating back to the RS2, you have this little switch on the side that's going to be a quick way to change the different follow modes on the gimbal. So the first one is the PTF mode. That stands for pan, tilt, follow. And what that's gonna do is when that mode is activated, anywhere that I point the gimbal, it's going to pan to that position. And furthermore, it's also going to tilt down when I point the gimbal that way. This is my favorite mode because I find it the most organic, and it just feels really natural when I'm trying to like follow the action. There's a nice graceful sort of roll off on the movement, and that's just my jam. We have the PF mode, which is just going to be the pan follow mode. And the pan follow mode is going to lock the gimbal off at the current tilt that it's at. So when I go down, the camera's staying level that whole time. And you'll notice that even though it's staying level, if I pan from side to side, the camera is panning with me. So that's helpful to know as well. Final mode, this bottom one here, is the FPV mode. And the FPV mode stands for first person view. And this is the one that's going to activate the gimbal's ability to roll. So if you want to do some sort of like moving Dutch tilt or something like that, it's really commonly used in a lot of action scenes. Now, if you want to keep the gimbal in a certain position, let's say that I want to do like a push with the gimbal rolled this way, you're going to hold down the trigger. You can see that it's locking it in place. And then if I want to move away, I just let go. So hypothetically, if you have the gimbal in kind of a weird position, like you set it down and it's a little off kilter, what you can do is double click the trigger and it's going to recenter the camera. And that's going to be like your North Star. I use that all the time because when I'm doing crazy moves and the gimbal kind of gets out of sorts, I can double click and have it recenter. It's brilliant. I'm also going to switch this back to the PTF mode because that's my favorite mode. But now let's attach the controllable handle. If you guys don't know, this wasn't a thing with the last few models. This is a handle that has the ability to not only switch up your modes through this button, but you can also hit record, and there's a little joystick there for controlling the camera, and that was a absolute game changer when they introduced that. So what I'm gonna do is first start by loosening this. I'm gonna pull it to about this position. This feels good. Basically what you want is, it's totally up to you. What I like is when the handle is sort of parallel to the back of the gimbal here. I find that that's the most comfortable for me, but you can loosen this and adjust it wherever you want. Now to lock it onto place, you're gonna see again, there's these little pins that we need to make sure are making contact here. So we're going to come up under here, and as you slide the handle onto the little mount, you're gonna hear a click. And that is its own lock button that exists down here. When you wanna remove it, you'll press that, but we heard the click, now we're just going to tighten it. So something that threw me off with this guy the first time I was using it was there is a switch to activate the ability to control the camera with this handle. So you just want to make sure that that's all the way down in order to get that working again. So now that it's down, it's moving side to side. I can control the camera by moving the joystick around. Recentering, I can double click this trigger. It's the same function as the one on the front. And this can be just a nice way to use the gimbal. You can also go to a really low angle and tilt the gimbal up like this. And then if you want to get like a really low angle shot of like somebody's feet, or if you want to push into a space, you can do that. Before this joystick on the suitcase handle, we were just reaching down here and using this joystick like a bunch of peasants, and now we have the ability to not only control the position of the camera from one of these low angles, we can also activate recording, we can change our modes, and we can recenter it. It's really honestly an inspired feature that comes with the RS5 that I love. Okay, now we're going to activate the AI tracking module. So like I mentioned, this is the active tracker. We will know that the active tracker is connected to the camera by this little red dot that's glowing up here that just tells us, okay, the connection is made, this thing is locked and ready to go, but it is not currently active. We have to activate it. So here's how you do that. We're gonna swipe up the one time and then swipe over, and we're gonna see what the tracker is seeing. Then from here, if you want to adjust any settings for any reason, tap the settings icon. Believe it or not, we're actually going to use hand gestures to activate the tracker and to keep it on us. So to do that, I'm going to place this over here. We have our tracking module on. So watch the light at the top of the module. Currently it's red, but if I step back and I get into frame, I'm going to activate it by just raising my hand, okay? And you see it turn green, and now it's going to follow me everywhere that I go. It's going to track me, keeping me center frame. Now, let's say hypothetically that I'm looking at a monitor and I don't like the framing. Check this out. I'm gonna reframe it like this. And you see that it went to a yellow. And this is going to enable me to reframe, let the camera refocus. And then when I'm ready to activate it again, I'm gonna hold up and reframe my face again. You'll see that it went green and it's keeping tracking on me. If I want it to stop following me, I'm going to do the same gesture that I did to activate the tracking. I'm going to hold up my palm. Bam. And you probably can't see because of the angle, but now you can see the light is red again because it's not tracking me anymore. So that's a fun thing. One of the cool features of all of this is that we have the ability to not only control the gimbal using the AI tracking module with the different hand gestures, but we can also pair the camera to the gimbal itself using Bluetooth. First thing we're going to do is we're going to activate the Bluetooth on the camera body itself. So we're going to go to menu, we're going to toggle down to the network menu, which is the green one, toggle over and go down to Bluetooth. Toggle over again. Bluetooth function is currently off. We're going to hit it as on, and now we're going to go to pairing. And that's going to basically make the camera findable in the gimbal's Bluetooth under the title ILME FX3. So now that that's set up, we're going to go down here. We're going to swipe downwards, and we're going to see this little camera with the blue icon, the Bluetooth icon. Tap that. Tap Sony because we're using a Sony camera. We're going to confirm that we're enabling things. Confirm. All right, and then we see the ILME FX3 there, and we're going to hit connect. And then on the camera, you're gonna see this menu pop up asking for confirmation on our connection. We're gonna hit OK. And now these are paired. Don't forget this step. Once it's paired, you wanna scroll down to Bluetooth remote control, and you want to toggle that on. And then you wanna say use paired device. And the reason we want to do that is because now, whenever we position the camera, we can again use hand gestures to not only get the camera to follow us, but also to start and stop recording, which is a really, really handy feature. You can scroll to the left. I can frame myself up and I can tell it to start following me. Now, once it's following me, if I want to start recording from a distance, I'm doing my spiel, I'm talking around, I can hold up the peace sign and I'm just going to hold it there. And now the camera's recording and I can just keep talking. I can move around this way. I can show my bad self here. And it's pretty accurate given that it's a robot. Now that I'm done, I want to stop recording. Again, I'm just gonna hold up the peace sign. Boom. So there you have it with the setup. Now we're going to tear all of this down, put it away. So first of all, we're going to turn off the camera. When you turn it off, you're going to use the power button here and you're going to power it off. It's going to lock into place like that. To take off the handle, we're going to loosen it there. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a little release button. You're going to slide that away and then pull down to unhook the mount from the mounting point. We're going to loosen that knob and fold this up. And I'm going to set that down. Next, I'm going to take the camera off. I'm going to loosen that knob. I'm going to hold this button here and just slide the camera off, being careful not to drop it. From here, I'm going to loosen this guy. Hold down this button, slide that off, and then we're just going to unthread the 1/4 screw. Something that I do just because I can get disorganized when I'm in the chaos of a shoot is I just keep this mounted onto the sliding plate all the time, no matter what. Just the second that the camera's off, I just slide that back on, lock it in place. That way I know where it is at all times. Next, we're going to remove the brain of the gimbal. So I'm going to loosen this. And we're going to hold down the release button and lightly pull, and you'll see that come loose. And finally, we have the feet that we're just gonna dismount from the battery. So in the case, last thing that I forgot to do, you want to make sure that you unattach your tracking module. So you'll just press on the silver hooks there, and then it'll pull loose like that. Now we have the case, we have the tracking module. Again, don't want to lose it, so I'm going to put it right back where it goes, which is in the bag of goodies. So that lives in this netted section. Then the brain lives here. There's a little diagram of how the brain fits. So we're just going to follow that. Basically, the fork of the brain, it sits nicely in there. So from here, I like to wrap this first strap, kind of tuck it under, make sure it's flush against the gimbal as much as possible, and then secure it with this second strap, like so. Then if we flip this, we have all these fancy, fun pockets. I always put the control handle in the largest pocket. And then this one, you can just kind of assort however you like. Whatever feels right to you. And we're done. If you have any questions about your specific setup, please give us a call at the shop, or you can email us at service@ProPhotoRental. We'll be happy to answer all of the questions that we can. Otherwise, my name is Cam, and thank you for hanging out with us today.